So in like part 2 of this event, we have Voyager going up on Raid Up, and this is actually kind of an interesting servant that they're putting out there. Because Voyager is one of these servants that is like, if you don't have Edmund Dantes, Voyager is like your next best bet. He might even just be straight up better than Edmund Dantes, although his attack stat's a little lower, so like he doesn't do quite as much damage as Dantes does. So it's not like he completely invalidates Dantes, and Dantes is like an Avenger, so it's like, oh, he can get some special damage against like rulers, so he has like that niche, I suppose. But Voyager is like built entirely different for the Scotty meta. Like he's really good. So them throwing him out there, like it's like, hey, if you didn't get Castoria, maybe you still have Scotty. We're throwing Voyager out there again. He's going back on Raid Up, so you can try to get this unit, because Voyager is one of those servants that you can basically use him to farm anything because he's a foreigner. Now, looking at his hits are like very just solid. Like he's almost got like a baby Gilgamesh kit where Gilgamesh has 5 hits on everything and then 7 on his extra. Voyager has 3 hits on everything and 5 on his extra, which is really strong, especially considering that he has 0.56 NP charge, which means the 3 hits on his 2 arts cards and the 3 hits on his 2 quick cards, which quick is, you know, the type of servant he is, so that's going to be very good. He's going to be able to gen decent NP from both of those, right? Especially if he's able to get crits on those, and with him being a quick servant and dropping a whole bunch of stars, yeah, he's definitely going to get a lot of crits off on those. So his hits are very solid, right? They're just very nice, right? Then his first skill right off the bat, it's a 50% battery that gives him 10 stars and debuff immunity for 3 turns, all on a 6-turn cooldown. So this is already like a dream skill, because it's a battery that you can just pop for free and you get additional effects that you wouldn't really need at any other time, right? Basically, you're not going to pop his battery and regret popping it at that point, right? It's not like you're going to lose damage or your dodge or anything like that. It's like, hey, here's your 50% battery, and then here's a little bit of stars, which are nice, right? They help you out, especially if you're just starting out a battle. It's nice to just get a little bit of extra stars, right? A nice little extra 10. And then the 3 turns of debuff immunity, not 3 hits of debuff immunity, 3 turns where you just cannot do diddly squat to Voyager at all. Like, you can't do anything to him for 3 turns. That makes him really good in challenge quests, right? This is already a very powerful skill. Then we have his second skill, which it does the thing where it mixes your damage with your survivability skill, which is very annoying, right? I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of annoyed by this, but it's still a very good skill. So what it does is it gives you 1 turn of evasion, so it gives Voyager a way to survive if he's in like a challenge quest or something. It buffs his quick performance by 20% for 3 turns, and reduces 1 enemy's quick resistance by 20% for 3 turns as well on a 6-turn cooldown, which that might just seem like, okay, so it's like 40% quick buff, like something like that. But because they're separate buffs, the damage would multiply into each other, which is good. It helps Voyager, who has a very low attack stat. And it functions similar to, say, Kiara's skill, right? Where Kiara can AoE debuff everybody with defense, but then she can specifically say, that one person who's maybe a little bit stronger than the other enemies, I'm going to lower their arts resistance so I can do a little bit of extra damage to them. It's very good for Voyager. Now, this is going to be like maximum useful in challenge quests, because obviously if you pop this on wave 1, you kind of lose the quick resistance thing, and you do want to have as much quick performance as you like would want for farming, right? So you don't necessarily want to save it for the final wave, but you can kind of play around with it a little bit, right? And overall, it is just a very solid skill. Finally, Voyager's third skill, again, just another powerful skill on a 6-turn cooldown. He's able to target a single ally and basically draw all the stars to them. He's going to give them like really good star weight, and then he's going to give the entire party 2 powerful buffs. The first is 30% critical damage for 3 turns, and the second is 20% critical attack chance resistance for 3 turns, basically giving you some defense against crits specifically, and giving your whole party a little bit of that offensive crit damage, right? Because Voyager is going to be dropping quite a few stars as a quick servant, and so now he's like, not only am I going to provide stars for everybody, but I'm also going to give you guys the damage as well, which means in challenge quests where there's a lot of enemies, like say the Moriarty event right now, or not, well, Shiro Amakusa event, right? But it has the Moriarty boss, where the boss is Moriarty and a lot of enemies. You can kind of combo with Voyager. Voyager can be your like secondary DPS who's providing stars and all these little utility things, while also clearing some of the trash mobs as well. It makes him very good for that outside of farming. Now, looking at his passive skills, he has like the Foreigner skill that gives him 2 stars every turn. He has a like unique skill to him, I believe, the Independent Navigation, which gives him 8% crit damage and arts performance, which just gives him that little extra buff to his arts card. So just help him gen his NP just a little bit better, and it's going to let him do a little bit more damage with his crits. And then he has a 10% chance to just neg any buff removal. So even though he can stack up all these buffs, you know, if someone wants to remove his buffs from him, he at least has a 1 in 10 chance to be like, nah, I'm keeping my buffs, you know? Then there's his NP, still not buffed. It's a little soon for his NP to be buffed, but I can't say that we haven't seen that before, where like a servant comes out and they kind of get a buff a little soon. But it's good that they haven't buffed it, because his NP is very strong, because he gets big extra damage against Sky attribute enemies. He charges everybody's NP in the party by 20%, and then if you are a living human, you get an additional 10% NP, which is a decent amount of other allies, right? It's not too bad, but basically I would just throw him into team comps and be like, oh, he's gonna give everybody 20% NP back, including himself, which is why he's able to loop so easily, by the way. So you can kind of just keep throwing in like free NP for Voyager. Like he just keeps helping everybody else loop and helps himself loop like very well. And then he has a nice little overcharge effect where he gets 20 to 40% NP damage, depending on overcharge. So overall, Voyager is very strong. He's very good for the Scotty meta. When he came out, I was like, this is a very strong, quick looping servant, and he's just good in like challenge quest. You know, he's like an extra type, you know, he's a foreigner, so he's kind of just good everywhere. I was kind of perplexed when he came out, because I was like, this servant's very good. And then obviously they released Castoria later that year, and she just was like, I'm the queen of farming now, no more quick farming. So it's like, that makes sense why they made Voyager so good. And they gave him just insane looping potential and the ability to be very powerful in challenge quests. He's very good with support. Honestly, if you're someone that doesn't have Castoria but you have Scotty, and maybe you don't really have Edmund Dantes and you're kind of relying on like say Lancelot, or you have to rely on say like Parvati or specific quick servants per like type battles, like if there's archers and you're like, oh, I have to use Parvati, and you don't have like a one general good team, then Voyager's very good to summon for, because since he's an extra class, you can just bring him to any battle and he'll do really good generally. So honestly, like I can't tell you to not summon for Voyager. He's one of those like limited servants that they're bringing around for this event. He's very strong, and again, especially if you don't have Castoria but you do have Scotty, I would recommend, you know, throwing some Quartz at him. Now, if you already have Dantes, then you don't need Voyager, right? Because Dantes, you know, you'll get along just fine using Dantes. Although, if your Dantes isn't higher NP, you might struggle to loop. Whereas Voyager, even at NP1, should still be fine to loop. I've had some extensive use with Voyager, and there was a few times where the enemies were getting really beefy and we were kind of struggling, but you can still make it work. So do keep that in mind, because his damage is quite low, and damage is very important when it comes to looping and getting overcharge. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, if you summon for Voyager, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a very solid choice. But with all that being said, let me know if you guys are going to summon for Voyager or not. I do believe there's probably something very hype coming down the pipeline, because it really seems like they're trying to push us to summon right now, with Karen being so good, with Amakusa being so good with his buffs, and then they're throwing out Voyager. After like Voyager and Karen, those are two very powerful quick loopers back to back. I'm feeling like maybe there's something big with quick down the pipeline, although I could be wrong. But with all that being said, you know, it is me, your boy. Leave a like, subscribe, all that good jazz. With that being said, I'm gone. Peace late, guys.